Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
official.
how you doing?
Good. Welcome.
So it sounds like the border may be penetrable in short order.
Oh, what have you heard?
Mid-August, Americans can go north.
If you're fully vaccinated and can prove that you don't with a test,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I got my card locked up. It's also on my phone, so I can flash it that way. I would
Uh-huh.
welcome a digital vaccine passport. A QR
Yeah.
code with a token, something like that. But God forbid, there's different standards around the world being posed, and so I'm not going to hold my hopes up. But yeah, I have
The
my card.
That's exciting. I'm getting my second shot next weekend. I'm
Yeah.
The only bad thing I saw about the back and forth traveling is that you have to have a test on both sides of the border to prove that you don't have COVID. And so you're going to have to pay for that test on at some point. Either if you're in Canada, so you're going to pay about $200 for a test, $100 to $200 from what I've read. So,
But that's less than $1 a day since I last saw you. A
definitely.
bargain or any stretch of the imagination. Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
exciting though. I know things are
yeah.
definitely
So
opening up.
yeah, and then my passport expired, and I didn't get a new one before they shut. You can't go to the post office anymore and do the just automatic thing. And so to handle the backlog now that Americans want to travel, especially overseas, they're doing pop-up um, instant passport like things.
Oh,
None in
cool.
Seattle, nor in
Yeah.
Cleveland will be next week. But yeah, I'm gonna try the paperwork and just wait because I might as well get in line and do it before they who knows what'll happen.
Well, I read yesterday that there's a backlog of 2 million applicants with their passports right now in the US.
Yes, but I did get when I found that out, I did get an enhanced driver's license, the real ID, which makes life so much easier. So yeah, hey, I think they're supposed to announce this week, and they were talking about um, mid-August, mid-September, I forget, but real soon now. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's the fact that it's possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know it's exciting. Cool.
Now,
Well, tell me about how is farm life going?
so farm life, I had a minor meltdown when I realized I was out of my element and it was goofy. It's not goofy. It is the way things are done in New Mexico. It goes back to these, well, to indigenous people, but also uh, more recently, um, when the Spanish came, they brought these arroyos, these irrigation canals that they learned when they were taken over by the Muslim world. And so it's been going on for time immemorial. You basically flood the field with a fire hose. Now, perhaps you've seen episode 4. We show that. Um, I it's a very different terroir, which I'm learning courtesy of Gino, this farmer renting land fund. But the plants are coming up. So Jonas sent me a photo of a little seedling popping its head. When I talk to him later, I'd like to see a little panoramic shot of the field, but I'm sleeping better now. And
So,
yeah.
wait, you're telling me I didn't watch the video yet, but you're telling me you're telling me that the babies are like this big and they flooded them?
No, so what we did, so when I went down the first time, Gino turned the field over. And it's great soil. It was his tomato farm for years. And then 2 weeks later, I go back, and the rains have disturbed the plateau. So he does it again, but he had a seeder attached to his tractor, and he had just planted sorghum. And the sorghum seeds were the same size, give or take a little, as the hemp seeds. And so we cleaned out the sorghum seeds and filled it full of hemp. And the good news was I had a spreadsheet calculation of how many pounds of seeds for this plot, and it came dead on with like a cup and a half of seeds left over. And so I was pretty sure the density was right, but relatively, randomly scattered. Um, and then uh, we turned these fire hoses on the field, and there's a slight incline, and the water was trickling down as you would expect. Oh, behind the cedar, Gino had a piece of chicken wire, 4-inch um, gaps, weighted down so that he could drag it over the field, disturb the soil, and bury the seeds the quarter inch, third of an inch you want. Um, then the fire hoses come. And there was some, let me add some furrows to move the water around. And I'm looking on, I'm used to drip irrigation, you know, and a timer and a reservoir for the fertilizer and whatnot. And my thought was, we're going to wash these seeds to the far end of the field, and that'll be it. Um, and then Gino and his wife, Jonas, both went to their city houses, Santa Fe and Albuquerque, for like 5.5 days. This is Saturday afternoon, and they're coming back Thursday. And so Jonas drops me off at the airport, and I, check in, and I sit down and went, what just happened? It's sort of like leaving the house for a camping trip with the stove on, or whatever. And so uh, it was very different. The water table's close to the surface, and the soil can be dry on top, but it wicks up. And just all this stuff I was out of my comfort zone. I did come to my senses, and Jonas he talked to a consultant and went out and bought a drip irrigation setup, and life is groovy. I will be going to Ohio this week, both for family stuff and to talk to some hemp people and flax people out there. And so I assume when I get back on the 26th, I will do laundry, fill up the gas tank, and drive to New Mexico because I need to see what's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, now it's the question of, this waiting period of watching it grow. And then, okay, so we're going to take the bar and run through the field and cut it 6 inches above the ground. What the hell do we do now? And so in my mind, I have a workflow based on last year's experience about how to get the bast off the stem and how to process that. Um, I obviously didn't have the scale last year that I will this year, but this is all about dialing in the terroir and the genetics, and also on the back end, figuring out how to scale up processing with the focus on bast, not hurd. And a lot of people chasing hempcrete are looking at the plant a little differently than us. But I figure it's New Mexico, land of adobe and these, what do they call them? Earth ships or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. And so, hey, we've got hurd here in burlap coffee bags. Come and get it. Well, just buy us beer, whatever. Because to me, the real value and the real interest is in the bass. So
Sure.
yeah, so far so good. Haven't gotten an update in the last couple of days other than some irrigation plumbing parts sort of thing. Oh, yeah. And I'm getting used to the dirt, the plants, the animals, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't look as alien as it did when I first got there. Not that I hadn't been there several times before, but this is, I'm kicking around dirt and putting my hands in soil, and it's pretty wild.
I mean, it's really important, I think, to be able to have hemp growing and just seeing how all these different cultivars are growing in the different places, right? And
Oh,
understand like and also like farming them the way that the locals farm them as opposed to how you would farm them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And the other thing, so I was gonna share this with you. So paper, and I'm beginning to work with a flax farmer or two, and someone mentioned in a conversation that, hey, one day you're gonna have to take on King Cotton in Texas. And yes, that is the 800-pound gorilla in the US. But my understanding, it came to my attention that many of the textile cultivars don't do well in Texas. And now they're trying to find, and it's that whole thing about modern hemp cultivars, at least the CBD kind, were bred in Oregon and Colorado. You move below the Mason-Dixon, the soil, the light, the angle of the sun, the photo period, um, it's just different. And so um, this whole matchup thing between the genetics and the terroir, the, you know, it's going to take years to
I
do
mean, I
this.
have a $1 billion question. Where is the best place to grow for textiles?
Well, the jury is out. So the bulk of what we planted was this old Chinese fiber cultivar. So the seed farm, I guess, is in Kentucky, but the genetics, the genotype is old school. Um, while we used Geno Cedar, and they're, according to the spreadsheet and the work at, they're 2.5 inches apart, give or take. But I also did several little test plots, both different random scattered seeding density, 1 inch and 4 inch. And the idea is that we track the growth through the season. And the variables are the space between the plants, the overall diameter of the stem, and the ratio of herd to bass, because the closer they are together, the greater the bass to herd ratio, and we want bass. But they're also, in addition to this Chinese fiber cultivar, there's an Italian fiber cultivar. Oh, there's a fiber cultivar from the Hmong tribes people in Southeast Asia. And what else? At least two other fiber cultivars this year, but also the spacing thing, since we really don't know, especially for this cultivar, for fiber purposes, how the density. So there are questions to be answered, but I'm kind of encouraged hearing about other people doing fiber, and I don't see them as competitors, but cooperators. That, I'm going to
Right.
share a bunch of what we're doing. They can be type lit under IP, but I don't give a shit. But there's a lot of questions about how to grow fiber in the U.S.
Hmm.
And how to process it.
And how to
Uh,
process it. That's the
oh,
other one. Yeah.
speaking of which, I got samples the other day. Let me find them. Hold on, hold on.
Of what?
Yeah.
Paper. Oh, what is this now?
This is from Hempwood in Kentucky. And I
Nice.
got their sample pack, and there's a fine grain one,
Yep.
and then you're
They
gonna
look
build your deck
great.
with this,
Yeah.
So
Mm.
our pals at Route 108, Tyler wants to do. He has someone with a lathe who wants to make golf tees.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people. Hempwood in Kentucky seems to be the processor of the day in terms of taking hemp and making a usable product.
Are they
And
using, they using just the herd? What else are they using? Do you know?
it looks like herd. I don't see any green in here.
Yeah.
Um, and so the good news of the week is that I made connection with our mutual friend, the lovely Joy Beckerman.
Nice.
And when I asked which show I said I need to go back to work. Where should I go? Southern Hemp Expo. So seems to be the place to go. Hempwood will be there, as well as a bunch of other exhibitors. But yeah, it's time for me to play catch up with the industry. While this is not my top priority, I do need to keep up. I do have some ideas about what to do with our STEM, but I want to see who else is doing paper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah.
if any, like I've talked to other people who like that's their dream is to make paper and be an artist and work on their hemp paper. So like you're not alone in the dream, but not everybody can
Hold up.
execute it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And really, it's me. I've got a spreadsheet, virtual whiteboard that for the scale that we're doing at this point, making paper for artists to do letterpress and watercolor and other stuff is the way to go, because we can either sell some of it to the suppliers to those stores and those artists, or sell single sheets, whatever, ourselves. And it's a higher ROI, where you're going to make more money doing that. But there's no shelf life for fiber. It's not going to go stale, and it's dry in New Mexico. So I don't mind having inventory waiting to find the right folks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and the whole idea is, and I keep having to remind myself that what we're doing this year is dialing it in for 2022, and
Yeah.
that we have an option on way more land at Gino's, and then Jonas's as well, and other people in that neck of the woods. So yeah,
When is this convention that you discovered?
the first weekend in September in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Ah, that's kind of fun.
Ah, yeah,
I like
it'll be fun. I haven't
North
done a show
Carolina.
since, huh?
I like North Carolina.
I haven't spent time there, and I got some peeps out there. Yeah, there's people in Maryland, Georgia, all over, that I hope to play with. Not necessarily this trip. I think after harvest, me and my new, to me, pickup are going to do a little road trip south of the Mason-Dixon. I need to see what's going on out
Well, I'm thinking there's a lot going on because it's been like, let's say 2 years pretty much since we've even seen like the professional side of what's really happening. Everybody's working behind the scenes. And so,
there. Oh yeah,
I'm jealous. I want to get to some convention. I want to do some networking. I want to see what's going on.
oh yeah. There are a few coming up, and because I'm double vaxxed and incredibly conservative, though Seattle, Washington State, but especially Seattle, is wide open, I still wear a mask, and I launder. I have a ton of them. Essential worker that I am. I wear a fresh, clean mask every day. And if I don't know you, if I'm someplace with strangers, whether at the gas station or a store with an optional mask sign on the door, I'm wearing a mask. Partly, well, mostly to protect others, because I'm now traveling a lot and traveling in different states. When I fly to New Mexico, only one way has been nonstop, and I go at SLC and LAX. Shit, man, and the planes are full. So um, I do need to travel. I do need to network. It's fun, and there are a lot of people I haven't seen for a while,
Mm.
and a lot of events. A lot of the industry's changed. People have been sitting on their thumb, and I'm tired of the webinar online equivalent. It ain't the same. No, I'm not going to puff pass. You know, um, uh, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
and in further news, excuse me, I had a wonderful podcast with the Leaf Nation Northwest Leaf Posse,
Yeah.
focused on hemp paper and the impact on trees. Wes Abney was really about the trees, the bearded Lorax that he is. Uh, I was honored because I'm the first person to be on 3 times. And off the top of their head, they said it was the longest podcast they've ever done. But you'll be happy to know that I was teaching and preaching. I was talking about the hemp paper, filled with the spirit of the plant. Yeah, really. So, and the fact that I'm hearing all this chatter about other people doing fiber stuff, I think the emphasis away from CBD is exactly what we need right now. And part of me, though I've got some grain seeds, and obviously I'm not doing it this year, but American wheat farmers, corn farmers, soybean farmers need to think about hemp as grain and as a food product, because farmers are still getting screwed. But it's going to be the whole issue of, I'm learning a lot dealing with folks in the South, because it's totally different geoculturally. Um, Talking about the Trump farmers in the grain belt who don't want to get vaxxed and, but, they're in dire straits. Farming don't pay,
Hmm.
hemp will, and dude, you got to get off that Roundup. You and your family are gonna die.
I
Um,
was just thinking about the ultimate hemp hybrid where you can create a CBD t-shirt.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Actually, there are some fiber cultivars that have been grown um, that now that people are looking for CBD, you can get there are dual and even three-way crops. You can get CBD in the top. You can let it go to seed for oil or hemp hearts, and grow it close together and use the stems as well. That I have my hands full now. I thought about all these things I have that I could plant and do. And in my advanced age, I'm learning to say no and not take on so much. But we did plant one European old school fiber cultivar that is rumored to have 4% CBD. So
40? Yeah.
four, four,
Oh, 4. Okay.
which is kind of the threshold to make it worth your while. If you grow acres of it and you go through and cut off the top 6 inches, flower or not, um, at scale, 4% is a secondary income because if you're growing it for fiber by the acre, that's what your processing and your target market is. And you're not going to get that much for 4% CBD flower these days any more than 14% CBD flower because there's too much goddamn CBD biomass sitting around from 2019 and 2020 to even bother planting it in 2021. But don't ask me, you know, free country, do what you want. Um, so, um, so yeah, it's going to be an odd juggle between here and there. Um, uh, but I think we'll end up in the black. We'll learn a bunch, and once it's cut, I have the winter to play with all this stuff, and there could be a lot. I mean, it's going to be, yeah, it'll be fun. Beats a
Yeah,
real,
no. It's a cool project. I hope that everything grows just like it's supposed to.
yeah, and I'm sort of so I've got dye plants to to chum the water to entice the textile people who are doing either wool on the protein side or flax on the um, cellulose side. Everyone talks about hemp fiber for textiles and clothing. Ain't nobody doing it really. And a lot of stuff comes from China, as you know, or Eastern Europe. Supply chain's fucked up, and it costs more to ship it than it does to buy it. Plus, people want to support local farmers. I mean, everyone's been eating out of their garden or their farmers market or CSA since agriculture is totally upside down after last summer. So yeah, yeah, you know, shoot.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah, I
wearing
wish there was a way to like uh grow some grain to press oil or you to come down and juice the hell out of this stuff. They're going to be volume, volume, volume. But I'm really trying to focus. I'm sure I'll be overwhelmed when I go to this Southern Hemp Expo in North Carolina, just to be in an exhibition space and see 10 by 10s with booth bunnies and lights and bells and after parties going on. But yeah, I got to catch up. I think we're all behind. I mean, no one's been really traveling. Shit.
or maybe we were all paused for a reason so that we can catch up.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of incubation going on. I know
Mhm.
on my part, I wasn't sitting on my thumb, um, and it's hard to keep up with people when you don't see them. And we all figured out Zoom and a bunch of other stuff, but mm,
I keep missing all my Zoom meetings. It's bad. I've got
yeah,
groups that are like, "We're gonna meet every Friday," and I'm just like, "I keep missing Friday night, sorry." It's not good.
okay. So you're still doing Sundays without electronic communication?
Uh, I mean, I pick and choose. sometimes
Right,
I
right.
sometimes I just really need a break from being
Oh
like
yeah.
around electronic stuff. So I take those breaks, but probably I'll be available tomorrow.
So subject of the hour, what's the weather like where you is?
Ooh, it's been really nice and very dry, and most of British Columbia is on fire. Um, like 5 hours away from here, there's a lot of fires, and just on the other side of the mountains, essentially, and lots of smoke. And I heard there was like a little bit of clearing yesterday from the smoke, but it's been really smoky for weeks. Um, and
Really?
I don't know if you heard this down there or even if I told you this, but we had the hottest temperature record, blah, 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 like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
recorded in Lytton, BC. And then the day after, the entire town burned down,
right. Yeah, yes.
forest fire. So, like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's just like every summer has been. We have to deal with fires and we have to deal with smoke, and it's been this way for a few years now.
Yeah, but it's now become a Western American
Thing.
cycle. It's
Yeah.
happened. Um, I think the fourth one is now, and it has a different impact wherever it goes. But farmers are taking it in the shorts, not just the
Mhm.
power grid, but so the cherry crop, the white wheat crop, and the raspberry blackberry crop here are totally off, um, and no end in sight. It The only good thing from LeBlanc's perspective is we're trying to establish growing situations around the country to hedge our bets. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, and um, that's and thinking down the road. No one's giving up on hemp, so it's not if, but how, and you can't count on any one place giving you a full growing season without filling in the blank disaster. Whether it's fire or drought or too much rain and hail,
Mhm.
um, or whatever. Um, and then I'm figuring out or trying to figure out shipping and freight. Fuck. So the more hemp you grow, the more hemp you have to move around, either
Mhm.
from farm to processing or your warehouse to customers or what have you. Shipping rates are like up by 2 or 3 times what they were a year ago. The backlog is outrageous, but again, there's no shelf life. So part of me is thinking, money over time. Cost is a bigger factor than speed. Um, but yeah, inland waterway and barges. There aren't barges here in the Northwest, but the South, you can move stuff around on the water, and barges are cheaper than trains, and trains are cheaper than trucks.
Don't we
So
have
I'm looking,
barges on the Columbia River?
yeah, but where does it go?
I don't
Anybody
know.
going?
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, yeah, true. But you look at the waterway, and weirdly, it's where cotton was grown, and black folks moved white folks plant material around. So you're looking at these places in the South, and it's like Mobile, Alabama, and Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Louisiana, and whatnot. And it's like, oh yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Well,
Is
I guess
not just
not
growing at the
having you have to move it only when you need to
right, right,
and process as much as you can on site.
as much as you can, because in many cases the herd goes one industry, the bass goes another, and there's no reason one truck should move them someplace if it's two
Mhm.
branches of industry. But of course, what industry? You know, it's like there's so many contingencies, and trying to navigate it is crazy. But hey, I'm having fun.
I think that's
Just
the
have
most important part.
Yeah,
you've been sparked and you're alive and it's good.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm looking for fiber mills that can handle, you know, small to them perhaps, but to turn prepped bast into woven cloth. Because the idea is we're going to cut this stuff in like, you know, 36 or should I say 39-inch meter long pieces. Um, because hemp's known for long fibers. Why cut it? Because people who work with cloth want to spin or weave. So yeah, we'll see.
Um,
It'll be
so before we go this morning, I also wanted to let you know that I'm celebrating 10 years as a cannabis patient.
yes.
Cannabis over pharmaceuticals. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
You get the medal.
without that starting, sorry, what?
You get the medal like a 12 stepper. I got my 10-year card.
I got my 10-year bong.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think this, what would be Hempfest, would be 9 years for us when Marty Lee came and stayed for 6 days. I have to go back and look at the dates, but yeah, I think it's 9 years. Yeah, it's you definitely become an elder after first 5 or 6 years. Definitely pre-farm bill, and you go
Yeah.
back to medical marijuana before hemp, um, and it was still dicey.
I know. I'm feeling like an elder, which is really funny because I have all these like pre-legalization stories. And
Yeah,
it's
record
awesome.
those.
Yes, I am. I've been writing. So I've been doing a lot of writing and trying to document my journey because it's been really amazing. And honestly, without medical cannabis, I wouldn't be here talking about hemp because that's what brought me to hemp. So is
Right.
understanding the whole plant. So it's been really awesome. And I'm really
And you've
grateful
had
for that.
experiences on both sides of the border.
Yep. Yeah, I have. I've been a patient now in 2 countries, and so that in itself has been a whole experience and really awesome. And I've also been a patient before it was easy to become a patient. I had to prove that I needed to
Right.
have medicine and that I was taking other things and that they weren't working for me and all of that bullshit. So,
There's a
so
podcast.
we've come a long way, baby.
Yeah, now, it's funny. You see state after state legalizing medical marijuana or hemp for medicine or whatnot, often with restrictions like, oh, you can't have smokable hemp, only tinctures or capsules. But the fact that I know that over half of the US population lives someplace with some access to medical cannabis, whether it's hemp or marijuana. Um, um, which is amazing because I can't imagine, going back to when it was verboten, years and years ago as a kid. I I still have to slap myself going, my God, I can walk down the street smoking a joint
Mhm.
and the cop's going to drive by and not give me no never mind. It's just not an issue.
That's another thing. Smoking a joint in the street used to be like an act of civil disobedience,
Science.
right?
Yes.
And now it's just like it's not even cool anymore. It's just whatever.
I remember I had to be like like 22 or so in New York City. We had just been at the top of the Empire State Building. This is Kimberly and I. And we came down the elevator and opened the door, and it's rush hour, and people are just all over. And we find ourselves next to this woman in a fur coat, I'm sure vintage from a secondhand store, who hands us a joint. And we're in this crowd going, what the fuck? Sure. We lived in Ann Arbor where it was $5 fine, but it was just weird. It's happened in Vancouver, Yaletown, part of a music thing, and a taiko drumming, Japanese drumming performance, and the person next to us just hands us a joint casually. It's like, sure, works for me. I'm used to this. But yeah, it's out of the closet, um, and it doesn't raise eyebrows for those that don't personally consume. And you don't get a rise out of someone when you say, hi, what do you do? Oh, I'm a hemp farmer. Really? Oh, that's cool. It isn't shock or,
No.
it's, and it was also pointed out to me because psychedelics weren't subjected to the same prohibition propaganda as cannabis, that the legalization of psilocybin and other psychedelics is going to be easier because it'll be met with less resistance by, folks, whether it's microdosing for PTSD for vets or depression or whatnot. People seem blasé about, and I don't know what the heck microdosing is. When I did psilocybin, I was going to a dead show. Fuck micro. How many can I, it was like, let the walls melt. But yeah, it's become mainstream very quietly.
Yep.
I mean, like there's no, your kids aren't going to turn into junkies or whatnot. It's just psilocybin. Just, whoa, dudes.
I
And
mean,
my,
your story points to a point that I was thinking of the other day too, of it's like there's no, now you walk into a store and like pretty much you can get 10 milligrams of serving for an edible. But it used to be, and you can really titrate your dose and you know exactly how much it's taking. It used to be you were handed an edible and there's a take a quarter of it, take one bite, take a small portion. And so like there was a different attitude of like trying to see how much you can tolerate, as opposed
oh,
to, right, how start with the smallest amount and see what that feels like and then work up, even though they would say that, but what they would really do is like, let's see how much you could tolerate. So you end up taking like more THC in your edibles than you probably need. um
oh,
you know what I'm
now this
saying?
harkens back to one of our first podcast episodes where we talked to Dr. Ethan Russo at the Terpestival behind Dockside and said, hey, we heard you talk about kids' doses. And I remember he said, now this doesn't pertain to the two of you. The trigger amount is, in my humble opinion, is 2.5 milligrams. 5 milligrams is a standard dose, which at the time it may still be the Oregon dose, not 10. And he said, so 2.5 is the trigger, 5 is the dose, 7.5 is high, and 10 is really high. And we start laughing. And he goes, I know, I know, I know. And I'm like, dude, 35, 40, bring it on, Um, and I've done much more than that. But I beginning to, well, I've always thought that this race to have, higher and higher doses because the amount of THC is reflected in the retail price. And people still walk in and say, how much THC can I get for 20 bucks? Or how much?
Currently
Yeah.
in Canada you'll get 20 milligrams of THC for $20 edible.
Whoa.
$1 per milligram of THC is how much is costing in edibles. Like it's it's
Whoa.
it's ridiculous. So like you can still obviously make your own and bring that way down to like more pennies, like 20 to 60 cents per serving, right? If you're
Mhm.
but like that is a lot.
Is it because of tax like here, or is it just the
Partly.
producer to
It's
really?
partly, but like it's
Yeah.
also like it's a brand new market. And so it's a baby market that's newly maturing into brand new products. They're yeah, so everything is new. And it's also like remember when 5052 happened in Washington and cannabis patients were expected to shop at retail places,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden we're dealing with crappy weed that was
Mm,
overpriced. Well, that market
yes.
is still like, even though you have to really fish for the brands that don't have pesticides, and are going to be safe for you as a patient, it's still like way better quality. And the prices have come way down, after 7 years in Washington, as opposed to where we started, where it was
Yes. Agreed.
$17 a gram at Cannabis City on the first day, right? Which I was there.
Well, I just taken video. I didn't pull money out of my pocket. I had something else at home.
Me neither. I went down the street. I went down the street to the there was a collective down there that I got, like a medical cannabis collective that was still open. So I went from the cannabis city where there was like 200 people in line and just walked around the block and got right in the door and got amazing weed for way better prices.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, Ohio doesn't have rec. I'm thinking about a day trip to Ann Arbor for the farmers market. But also if what would clench it if there are rec stores that I can walk into. 2 years ago when I was there, they had passed the law in November, but they froze the medical until they figured out how to blend the two. And so because I wasn't an existing patient, I couldn't go to the medical dispensaries that were about to flip to legal rec stores. Now I hope they have that figured out. And I would, not that I want to buy anything, I just want to walk in and see what retail options are in Ann Arbor or Detroit in 2021. Um, uh, I'm always disappointed in Colorado. I haven't, maybe I'm not going to the right places, but it's like, yeah, whatever. It's not necessarily inexpensive, and I know what I'm getting when I shop at home, and and I also go for pre-rolls, and they've been shitty.
Mm.
It's like fuck
Mistake
that.
number one.
Yeah.
Never go for the pre-rolls. They're just sweeping it off the floor and putting it in there. Don't you know?
Well, see down here, like Kiona and who's the other one? Uh, uh, shit. Oh, Coffee with the K.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Mm-hmm.
a new favorite.
Familiar.
Yeah, it has to be well done, but the convenience for an old guy, I haven't rolled the joint in I don't know how long. I just, my hands are
What?
getting.
Come on now. That's how you keep your hands young and nimble is by
Oh, I have
taking
it
pre-roll
backwards.
joints.
But yeah, I've gotten picky, I mean, I want real sativas, real indicas. People are still selling Maui Wowie and ATF and whatnot. Um, but shoot, I want to see what the other parts of the country experience, because we're spoiled. And we also have different filters or different tastes when looking at a menu.
Totally.
We're not blinded by the specials or the cute names that people come up with. I don't know where they get all this stuff. Um, and I don't care how shiny the package is. Um, but yeah, I hate to see the Budweiser of cannabis kind of mindset set in, where these big companies are growing big farms for big profits and really don't care what you buy and experience. And this whole idea of preserving small craft cannabis and local expressions of the same genetics, um, it'll take a while for that market to mature, but there are, you know, distilleries, coffee roasters, breweries, cheese makers, that don't want to be craft or Jim Beam. They just want to do their thing their way and feed their family. So I really want to see if, because my understanding is there's been a huge home grow community or effort in Michigan for years,
Mm-hmm.
and
I've heard that
Lord
too.
knows, with Ann Arbor in the smack dab, not in the middle geographically, but culturally, I used to live there. I know there's pot. So I want to see how it's filtered out and how it's sold. You know,
Yeah.
I've been impressed when I've gone to rec stores in Portland. Um, they're well appointed. They're all different. They're kind of boutique like. They're fun to shop in. It
Are
isn't
they
like going
still
to,
doing deli style in Oregon?
I haven't been through Oregon for a couple years now. I actually I want to freeze time, go down there for a week and just wander up and down I-5. Um, they had a very strong medical scene, and God knows they've been growing pot down there for years. Um, the nicest thing is open containers, you can fucking smell it before you buy it.
That's right. That's what I
It's
mean by
like,
deli style. Yeah.
yeah, even Costco has wine tasting. Man,
Yep.
here, yeah. So what am I getting? And sometimes they'll squeeze the bag for you and get a little teeny whiff through the sea. Fuck that, man.
Yeah.
Get those chopsticks out. And
Yeah.
there's a
So now
vent
you know
with
that
a
it's
light
not
on it.
airtight, and now you're buying weed that wasn't even properly packaged. Don't get me started, Jerry.
At least you don't go to prison for it. That's the best thing. But yeah, we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, people, it takes, you got to put it in their hand, if not in their mouth. But people are discovering smokable hemp. And there are people who want the experience that the terps and the other cannabinoids provide without getting, 21.5% THC that puts them on their ass. Um, and and people think they know what hemp is until they smoke good quality hemp with
Good quality
terpenes.
hemp flour.
Oh,
Now,
oh,
here's a
nothing but.
question. Obviously, now you've smoked a number of hemp flowers. You must have a favorite hemp cultivar that grows the best smoke.
I have yeah, there's
Because
a
they can't
breeder.
all be good.
Um, well, some are better than others. They do have their qualities and properties. The ones that turn color, that have anthocyanins,
Mhm.
um, when frost hits them, cold nights, people love those. I do. Um, um,
What are the flavors that you're getting off of it? I'm curious.
oh, so I just had test results. So there's a breeder in Colorado who I've grown his stuff a couple years, and I just had the fourth cultivar tested at Analytical 360, and it was his cherry wine. Um, and while it's old school and people think it's tired and there's better things out there, there were it wasn't so much the quantity of terps, but the mix. I haven't smoked it yet, but I will mix it with Milky Way because it's a little hot to add some CBG. But there's a spectrum of flavors. Some are fruitier. Everyone seems to like the darker ones, the purple. Um, and in many cases, it could be a stand-in for pot, and no one would be the wiser. Not that I'm going to go out and sell to people off of Craigslist in a Starbucks parking lot at night and rip them off by selling them hemp. Half of them would be happy and not give a shit because you do get an experience. You're not on your lips stoned. You get well. You feel better. We know that terpenes rule, and everyone focuses on that one favorite cannabinoid, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. But
So
yeah, the
yeah,
flavor.
what are kind of percentages are of like other cannabinoids that are showing up when you're testing?
Oh, so obviously CBD, but this Milky Way that Hunter and Reich Farms grew has tons of CBGA and CBG. And much like Ghost Train Haze on the type 1 side of the fence, people touch their forehead. Stress, better sleep, anxiety. And as our pal Mr. Varney said, for years I've used pain as the meter by which I measure the efficacy. I need another yardstick. It doesn't hit pain straight on like THC CBD combination. And I describe it as, with some of the smokable hemp, it's your first time exploring another part of the cannabis palette.
Mhm.
Um, and it's nice. And people, you have to try it. You can't, and so um, for this first batch I did with Mango Mountain and Milky Way, I've put it in a lot of people's hands. I can't expect you to buy it until you've experienced it. If you like this one, there's more. It's the first of 4 blends I'm going to do that will be Milky Way, the CBGA cultivar, plus things grown by the same breeder in Colorado. So he has a palette. Milky Way brings something to bear. So we will have 4 related things. But people they come back for more and go, okay, I had low expectations, or I didn't know what to expect, but wow. So
That's pretty
yeah,
cool. No, it's like
yeah,
on
and
I didn't
I
didn't see
would,
that coming.
yeah, And I'm hoping, not so much this year, but next year that 'cause I have a bunch of seeds, um, that I do dial in um, it more the terpene side and actually cut early so that it doesn't get hot and you get more of a terp experience necessarily compared to um, huge amounts of CBD or CBG. Um,
What kind of hash
but
does this hemp make? Or are you making hash ever with it? Does it yield?
I've got to get new screens because the trichomes are freaking bigger and no, nothing
Okay.
falls through. I have done some. It's This year, I think I'm going to have access to enough trim that I can just blow it out and make all I want. There's also, I'm trying to put it together so by the time harvest comes around, um, I have access to one or more rosin presses.
Oh, yeah,
And based on my experience and several others, fresh frozen.
for sure. There's no other way to go. I
Yeah,
mean, there is other ways to go, but like,
why bother?
why bother?
Yeah, yeah. So it's, and I'm going to have a ton of root this year, and for uh, not just topical oil for me, but fresh frozen and hemp slash cannabis roots are those once a year opportunities. It happens at harvest, and if you trim and dry everything, there goes the fresh frozen.
Mhm.
And if you um, aren't a no-till proponent, the first thing you do after you put the stuff away to dry and cure is to take the tractor and plow the root everything under, including the roots. And so um, when people think that my pre-roll should be priced like cigarettes, I say it's not a tobacco replacement. Everything I do is medicinal, deliberately. Um, I'll make it reasonably priced, and it's not as expensive as cannabis, but it's not, it's trimmed flower. There are no leaves, period. And But I have sifted keef as I process for pre-rolls and other things. And in the end, I have mason jars of hemp keef.
Mm. Oh, and you're gonna
So,
press that into rosin? Mm.
well, it's kind of um, what I call industrial keef. It's a great ingredient because you need less of it to infuse things. It's not green, but there is. I go for volume rather than quality. Um, I will have to figure out the screen size to get the trikes to come through in one piece from hemp. Um, but I'm happy to have quart mason jars of hemp keef at my disposal. That's not a problem.
I'm happy
Um,
that you have that too.
yeah. And it lends itself not just to what LeBlanc does, but to act as a um, supplier to other processors. Oh, you want to make a salve? What are you going to use? I got like pounds of this keef. You ready? So,
Totally.
but yeah, it'd be nice to have. I'm not making as much hash as I'd like to, um, but yeah, to have smokable hemp in hashish form would be sort of like that penultimate top of the pyramid kind of thing.
Hemp hash pastilles, please.
Yeah, with the LB stamped in it, you know how it goes.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah, yeah,
Exchange
yeah.
currency.
Oh, yeah, really. Well, I love when people look at them, they call them coins. It's like, yes, there's a value, either sale or barter. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a fun summer. I'll be a little busy. I can't wait until harvest is over and I can play with this stuff. But um, I we have enough going on in New Mexico this year to set us up for next year. And one of my goals is to reach out to people from New Mexico State University, the ag school, to come play with us, um, and take part in what we're doing. I mean,
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
More minds the better. Sometimes, usually.
Usually. All right, pal.
All
So
right.
I'll be in touch, and I'm glad we had a chance to catch up. And I believe this is the week your homeboy is going to talk about the rules to cross the border. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
they're
I
always
can.
talking about it, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, here's my vaccination card, and here's my enhanced real ID. Open that border. Open that border. Open that border. And I still have a bunch of Canadian change from previous trips to feed the meters. Because I have had my car towed in Vancouver. That was a fun exercise.
When I came back to Vancouver, I'd been gone so long, but I still had like old cash, but the
Yeah.
cash had changed. And I go and pay for a smoothie, and this kid on the other side was like, "Whoa, what is this? I've never seen this before." I, I felt bad that I spent it. I was like, I should have saved it, but I let it go.
Oh, yeah. God. Well,
It's hilarious.
yeah. Life is goofy. All
Yeah.
right, pal.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
See you next
Peace.
time. Bye.